Welcome to Complexity Made Simple. My name is Paul Allen and the subject of today's newsletter is Statistical Process Control. Why you always need statistical process control, and to be honest, why you're already doing it. So let's get into this subject, Statistical Process Control. I'll shorten it to SPC in a moment, but I'm going to stick the full title up. Statistical Process Control. Now I'm guessing one of the reasons you might be looking at this video is because someone is forcing you to do SPC. So it could be one of your big customers, big named customer, Rolls-Royce, Boeing, someone like that is forcing you to use SPC. It could be that your ISO auditor, ISO 9001, is forcing you to do SPC, or it could be some consultant like me has said, hey, you need SPC, and you're here to find out whether you really do need it. Well, before we talk about whether you should be forced to do it or not, let's talk about why you're already doing it. So you might as well use the best version of it as make stupid decisions. So look, let's look at the phrase statistical process control. What do? Statistical. You take measurements. Now I'm guessing that at some point in your processes you take a measurement. There's some things that you're trying to do. Okay, so statistical. We take a measurement of some kind, and then we often offer it up to some tolerance, and we ask the question, is the machine working okay? Am I producing good product? Am I hitting tolerances? Whatever it happens to be. You could be doing that in process. You could be doing that on the batch after you finish manufacturing it. But one way or another, you take a measurement. Statistical. Okay, then what do? Well, then you typically make decisions. Now obviously one of the decisions, are the products any good or not? So you're going to go red bin, green bin, decide what to do with the product. Can you ship it to the customer? But the other decision you could be making, of course, you're going to make process decisions. You're going to decide if you need to do something new to your process. Now this is especially true if these measurements are taken in process. So if you've got a technician or an operator doing in-process checks, what will they do next? What will the decision be? They'll make process control decisions. They'll adjust the process somehow, try to make it better. So look at this thing, statistical process control. We take measurements, we make decisions. You're already doing it. You're already doing it. So don't tell me you don't need SPC. If you don't need SPC, you wouldn't measure anything, you wouldn't bother adjusting anything. It's already going on. So why do you want this thing then? Well, the reason you want proper SPC is to stop you making the processes worse. They say 90% of process adjustment makes the process worse. You make the process worse 90% of the time. Now, by the way, that's not what you see. That's not what the operator sees. So let me show you what's going on and why you need this thing. Imagine you're running a manufacturing process. The process is going to generate a distribution. The distribution is going to look like this. Out in the tails, so we haven't quite got capability here. Out in the tails, let's say we got a 2%. We got a 2% defect rate out in the tails. Now, if you showed that picture to your technician or to your process operator, would they be happy that they've got the defect rate as low as it can possibly be? Well, yes, because the process is centered. The tails are as small as they can be. What would the operator and technician be doing? They'd be drinking tea and reading the paper because they don't need to make an adjustment. Hands off. They wouldn't make it worse. Unfortunately, nobody shows them this picture. What they see is one data point at a time, and they judge that data point by whether it falls inside the tolerance or not. Now look at the picture. Look at the picture. So this is what I said, that 90% of the time they make it worse, and they don't know they're making it worse. That isn't what the data is telling them. So let's see what happens. Look at the picture. Where is most of the results? Well, most of the results, look, is in this nice big fat section in the middle. There's an awful lot of data results fall in the middle. So what do? They switch the process on. They start taking measurements. They start doing statistical process control. They're doing it anyway, but they're making their own rules up. Here's what happens. Because where do the results fall? Well, they fall here. Because of course lots of results are in that section. So what do they think they've got? Put another process down here. So in their mind, those results are telling them they've got that. So they're happy, okay? But eventually what's going to happen? Well, eventually they've got to get one of these, haven't they? So now what happens is one of these turns up. Now what do they think has gone on? Well, now they think the whole process has shifted to the left. So now they think they've got that. What do they do next? Well, what they do next, of course, is they walk up to the machine, they grab hold of a dial, and they swing on it because they want to push this thing to the right. Now what they're basically doing is pushing this to the right. What happens next? Well, of course, what happens next is this 2%, that used to be 2%, is going much bigger. They're going to make it worse. Okay, so now, they've got this thing, haven't they? So we've got a big distribution now, and now we've probably got about 15% sitting out in the tail here. But again, 15%. Where's most of my data though still? You see, 85% is still inside the tolerance. So when they start collecting more data, what do they see? Well, they see more data points in here because most of the data is in there anyway. So that's what they're going to see. Then eventually, so what do they think they've got now? They think they're back here, don't they? They think they're making it better. Well done, fellas. Because they've just bumped the reject rate up to 15%. Now what happens? Well, eventually, they get one out there, don't they? Now what do they think's happened? Well, now they think, flipping heck, process is all the way over there now. Now what do? Now they go grab on a dial and they swing it back the other way. Well, it goes back there, so I'm going to grab this whole thing and I'm going to whoosh it over here maybe. What are they doing most of the time? They are making it worse. What's the data telling them though? The individual data points, and this is the key point, they're getting it a data point at a time. They're getting a data point at a time. They think they're making it better when actually they're making it worse. Now SPC is going to stop them doing this. Let me show you how. Okay, what SPC is going to do for your operators and technicians, it's going to communicate the true picture of the process. So at the very beginning I said, if your technicians and operators could see that distribution, they could see the 2% in the tails, they could see the fact that it was centered, they'd leave it alone. They'd stop doing this. That's what SPC is for. In other words, this is instead of you doing your own SPC, making your own rules up and making the most half-arsed and stupid decisions and letting your technicians and operators make your process worse, we're going to use rules that have been around for 100 years that will make sure that you get the best out of your equipment. That is what your big customers are forcing you to do. Your big customers are forcing you to make more money. Your ISO 9000 auditor is forcing you to make more money. That's a terrible thing to do to you, isn't it? So let's show you what it's going to do. Well, essentially, on a graph, so we're going to get ourselves a run chart. The run chart is going to calculate limits. The limits are control limits. They are not spec limits, and that's most important. Because when we used the spec limits up here, typically what did we do? We made the process worse. These limits are effectively the very end of this distribution, and that's what's being communicated to you. So if I put this in sideways, put this in, that's what's being communicated to the operator. The distribution is being communicated via the upper and lower control limit, not spec limit, and the center line. And then we give them some simple rules to adhere to when they're plotting the graph, so that if the process breaks those rules, and usually there are 7 rules to be adhered to, if the process breaks the rules, then you can think about adjustment. But if the process doesn't break the rules and it just sits doing its natural thing, just producing that picture, guess what you're going to do? You're going to sit back, you're going to keep your hands off the machine, you're going to drink tea and read the paper, because otherwise 90% of the time you're making the bloody thing worse. Get your hands off. Now that is what SPC does for you. It allows you to make more money. That's what these tools are for. Your customers and your auditors are forcing you to make more money. You are already doing SPC, you are just doing it badly. Go and learn how to do SPC properly and make more money. If you'd like to know more about any of the concepts covered in this video, or any of the other concepts covered in my other tutorial videos, then here's my latest book, Drink Tea and Read the Paper. Covers everything you need to know about how to make sure that Six Sigma becomes world-class engineering in your company. Otherwise, if you'd like to get in touch with me, a little bit of help about Lean, a little bit of help with Six Sigma, please contact me on the email below.